So as we are looking at the problem statement, we are assuming that you have created a clear research title. We are assuming that you have gone through the background of the problem. You have some historical facts about your study problem. You also have some historical facts about your problem. You have read about the theories that explain your problem. You have also read the definitions of your study variables. You know how to conceptualize the variable you have. You know the elements or the measures of the variable. You have already selected the elements which your study is going to follow when conducting that study. That is the assumption we have at this point. We also assume that you have some current facts about your problem from your study context. You gathered them, so you have that information. Before you have that information I have mentioned, you cannot write a problem statement, because a problem statement is feeding from that information of the background I have said or I've talked about. You need to have some historical facts about your study problem. You know how the problem has come about, how the situation has been in the past, and you need to know how the situation about your problem is now in your study location. It is from those facts that you will now extract a problem statement. We have already indicated here in the presentation that this, under the problem statement, the researcher officially mentions the problem that exists in the field or in the area where the study is going to be conducted, pointing out the current facts on ground that prove that the problem is existing, how dangerous it is, emphasizing the urgent need to conduct that study. So when you emphasize the need to study the problem with a view of understanding it more and possibly suggest solutions on how to solve it. So in brief, this is what is needed in your problem statement. But as we said that all what is said in this first bullet can be broken down into these 5 things. 5 things or sentences. In the first sentence of your problem statement, you mention the specific problem of your study, and where possible, you mention the source to prove its existence. Not always that whenever you mention the problem, you will tell us the source. We always need a source when the statement you have given us is too factual, involves facts that require evidence that it is not your personal statement, but you are picking it somewhere. So once you have done that sentence, sentence number 1, go to sentence number 2 and mention the specific indicators or signs of the problem. Here, it is like you are answering a question. What shows that the problem is there? The specific indicators or signs of the problem refer to the current facts on ground. Current facts on ground, which prove that the situation is bad or that the problem is there. That the problem requires to be studied, or there is a need for that study. You are convincing somebody with the facts on ground. If you have a positive problem, here you will bring the positive facts on ground. So what shows that the problem is there? This one is not your own make. It is you to locate the facts on ground by getting them from these sources: the newspapers, the current research reports, government reports, or if you are doing research about institutions, it can be institutional reports, or it can be even those international organizational reports like World Bank, UN, and so on, who always have current information about situations in many other countries. So you can see now, when you want current facts about a situation, these are the sources which you check. This is sentence number 2. Then sentence number 3 is where you mention the negative effects, some of the negative effects or dangers or consequences of the problem. If the problem is positive, not a negative, then you tell us what are we missing if your study or the solution you want to bring does not come, or what are we going to benefit. For people who have a negative problem, you tell us the negative effects or dangers of the problem. It is like you are answering a question. Is the problem really a problem? Is it dangerous? How is it dangerous, and to who is it dangerous? If it is an opportunity, make these questions the opposite. Is it really an opportunity? Is it important or beneficial? To who? How is it beneficial, and to who? Now, if you are done with that, you have given enough information about your problem. If you can look at points 1, 2, and 3, they are all giving information about the problem, which we said it is on your DV. Then point 4 and 5, that's where in number 4, you tell us the possible causes of the problem. If your study has 2 variables, the IV and the DV. If your study does not have IV, you will skip sentence number 4 and you straight away go to point number 5, which will be the last point for your case. But if you have both IV and DV, you can observe that sentence number 1, 2, and 3 are all about the problem. Sentence number 4, that is where you mention, the possible causes. You don't explain, but you simply mention. You simply mention the possible causes of the problem. As we have already seen during the conceptual phase, that usually when we have a problem, there is no one single factor that can explain its existence, or there is no one single factor which is responsible for its existence. Rather, there are many factors which contribute to the existence of that problem. We saw that as researchers at this level, we don't have to get our minds fixed to only one thing, even in life. You say, it is only this, it is only this. We leave a gap for other factors because you don't know. You may think it is this factor, and yet it is not that factor you are thinking about because you don't have any evidence. You are just thinking. We learned that at this level, we don't conclude quickly. Even if you are thinking about something and we encourage you to think, but you don't conclude until you have evidence. Even when you have evidence, for now, somebody can produce another evidence which may change your own conclusions, even if that conclusion was based on evidence. So even if we have evidence, we don't show off, we still leave a room for more information. So here we said, mention the possible causes of the problem. Where possible, you can tell us the source, the reference. Whenever I talk about the source, I mean reference of who said that is the cause to that problem. I said where possible. Even if you don't have a source, but it is your personal belief, you can put it here. Now, after that, then you mention the one specific cause which your study is going to examine, and you show why you have selected that particular cause out of the many possible causes. The reason you give tells us the gap which your study is going to fill. Some of the reasons you may give which may indicate the gaps are indicated here. Somebody has complained that the handouts I gave are only stopping at unit number 4, and they do not show the problem statement. I am going to send you this material after the class. Please, if I don't do so, the class coordinator should remind me. So from the previous slide, we said that the reason you give will tell us the research gap and some of the reasons why you may do a study about a given cause to show how it causes the problem are these ones. One, if according to the information you have gathered during your background search, you did not find any study examining the effect of that cause, which is now the one we call the IV. You did not find any study which examines the effect of that cause on the DV, which is your problem. You didn't find any study that shows the extent to which that cause you selected is responsible for the problem. This is a gap we call a content gap. For you to be able to identify a content gap, you need to critically look at the existing works of other people. It will not come very easily like that, especially at this PhD level. You need to seriously mean what you say. When you say there is no study, it should be that you have really taken some effort to search, at least in the available search engines, and you did not find. There, it is acceptable for you to say that according to what you have, the searches you have made, you did not find any study. If you say you did not find any study, then it gives you a justification for you to conduct a study to examine the effect of that cause on your study problem, which is the DV. That one gap is enough for a study. But if you did not find it this way, let me say, in your background search, when you are reading to create a background, you found some studies on your cause. And probably they were related to the problem. But you may ask another question, that if all the studies you were able to find about that particular cause were conducted in other countries other than the country where you are going to conduct your study, they were conducted in other contexts other than the context in which your study is going to be conducted, that can also be a gap identified by you. And we call that one a contextual gap. At a PhD level, a contextual gap may not be so much unless the study is wide and an experimental one. It is not a strong gap identification. The most strong gaps are either the content gaps, methodological gaps, or theoretical gaps, even though a contextual gap may also be accepted. This is another reason. The other reason, if you find out that, yes, there are some studies that have been done on your cause, but they are long ago studies. So time has gone. And when you check in the available literature, there is no recent study. This can also be enough for you to justify why you are examining that particular cause. Even though there are studies on that cause, most of them, if not all of them, were conducted a long time ago. Were conducted from a long time ago. Therefore, there is a need to see if things are still the same or to update the information. Somebody has asked me the difference between a contextual gap and a geographical gap. There is no difference, they are the same, just language. So if you do that, we call that a temporal gap. If you find that all the studies are not recent, I don't know whether somebody can ask a question here. How recent should it be? You can tell me the answer by typing in the chat. When we say, if there are no recent studies, how recent should the study be to warrant a repeat or a replication? Because when it is temporal gap, you are just replicating the available studies on the grounds that those are outdated. Type in the chat and tell me or share with us how recent is recent in research. We shall be capturing your responses. But for now, let us continue. Another reason we said, if you find out that all the available studies used different methods from the current methods the researcher wants to use, we call this one a methodological gap. So here, the studies on your IV and probably your DV do exist. But when you examine the methods they used, you are not convinced. You really feel that there is a different way in which those studies can be conducted, a different approach, a different methodology. And so the key knowledge your study wants to add is within the methodology. So here again, we said you need to be a bit critical by looking at the different methodologies. When you study this very slide here, it tells you that when you go to read a book, there are certain key issues you are looking for at this level. When you are reviewing the studies for your background, there are certain key things you are looking for. For example, where was this study conducted? What are the key variables of this study? What did they find out? What method did they use? What analysis techniques are they using? Because those are the areas, as you look at them, your mind is also suggesting, but is this the only way a study can be done? For example, the Azizis who want to produce certain models or certain applications in ICT, of course, people have done applications. What are they doing well and what are they not doing well? What is yours going to add? When you examine the strength and weakness of an existing model, you can find out where can we route it? Where is it located? Is it in the design, the way it was designed? Where? So that you can locate a gap for you to fill, even though the rest may remain the same, but you locate a gap for you to fill to justify your study, and therefore to begin or to launch a new study. Yes, we have seen some people here. They in the chat they are saying that someone has said Sizouma 5 years, another one has said 10 years for a time gap, then another one has said 10 years also. That is Habib Shehu. Yes, we also agree that the time gap, how long should it be, may not be uniform for the different disciplines. As for example, you see today, the world of knowledge production is moving at a terrific speed, especially in the fields of information technology. You may find that in information technology, something of 5 years has outdated. But in other disciplines, maybe in management or what, 10 years may be. I also want to believe that 10 years may be at least enough to warrant or to justify a replication of the study. Yes, somebody has given us a good information here, Shehu, that the archivers have classified into 3 stages: current, semi-current, and non-current. We want to attach years to those 3 so that we can, if you can attach years, that the current start from now to when, and then the semi-current and the non-current, it can also give more clarity, but thank you so much. Somebody has also requested for purposes of taking records that members can show their true names here, because we are recording your attendance. We want to see how you attend. So I think we shall do that. So I think we are seeing, we said, remember that a methodological gap is one of the strong points a PhD scholar may stand on to justify a replication of a study. And your major contribution, if it is a methodological contribution, those are some of the big contributions the research can make. So you have to be a very bit keen on methods. We may not necessarily replicate the methods, because this is the area where we are really, the world is really anxious to see, is there another way to do it? Is there another way to do it? Is there another way to do it? The methods, the methodology, as we shall see later, methodology is an innovative way of doing something in a different way, doing the same thing but in a different way. So research can be done over and over, but it can be done in different ways. That is methodology. So that is the reason which you give, that you have seen studies on your IV and probably your DV, but the methods they are using are different from the methods you are going to use. And then, lastly but not least, you have seen that there are studies, but they used different theoretical explanations. And your study wants to examine another theory, another model, another conceptual framework, which now will tell you that you are going to make a theoretical contribution. So we call that one a theoretical gap. You may believe that a certain theory explains well a situation, a problem situation. But when you look at existing studies, they have ignored it. So you want to bring it out and say, can this theory be used to deal with this, to explain the problem and probably have a solution to it? I told you the other time that the way we take theories here in developing countries is not serious. But theories gives a given approach to a solution. They show how a problem happens, and if we are to deal with it, how should we deal with it? For example, if there is a conflict, let me say a political conflict, just like you see in Africa or in countries, even globally, there are national conflicts, there are regional conflicts. But in conflict resolution theories, people have given different approaches on how to deal, why, for example, conflicts exist and how can they be dealt with. Just to know that each theory gives a particular component of a variable, which it explains well, but it cannot exhaust it. Each one contributes. So even when there are theories which have given solutions to a problem, the solutions they have given are not exhaustive. The problems still exist. So you can now also think of another way to explain that problem using another theory, and it may also work. So research is intended to see how to validate a theory in dealing with that problem. We call that a theoretical gap. At a simple level, not a complex one, we simply say, look at the theories examined in the existing studies, and you see if they are similar to the theory which your study wants to examine. If they are not similar and no study has examined your theory, then you identify a theoretical gap. If there is no different theory you want to test in your study, in other words, the theory you are thinking of testing has already been tested by other people, then your study is not having what we call a theoretical gap. It has another type of gap. When you do that, you have stated your problem statement. Look at this sample. So as you look at this sample, the problem area, if you look at sentence number 1, somebody said most socio-economic development indicators show Mitoma as one of the poorest districts in Uganda. The title for this study was socio-economic development. Sorry, it was household size and socio-economic development in Mitoma sub-county, Mitoma district, Western Uganda. The DV in this study was socio-economic development, and the IV was household size. If you look at this first sentence, it is mainly talking about the DV, which is socio-economic development. And the researcher is saying that most of the socio-economic development indicators the researcher has read about in literature or in reports, they are low, showing Mitoma is one of the poorest. And he went ahead to give the facts here with the sources. For example, he cites WUBOS, showing that WUBOS, in the WUBOS report, the socio-economic indicators or the welfare indicators of Mitoma are wanting. And here in the next sentence, he continues to bring out those indicators. As you see, the low completion level of education of senior 4, the high illiteracy, high unemployment. These are signs or indicators of a problem. Low internet usage. This is that very few households have a TV. Very few have access to piped water. You can see the figures have been given. Few have access to electricity at home. They depend on subsistence farming. So when you see these indicators, they are indicators of people or households which are poor. Somebody was saying we are not getting you well. I think the network has normalized. If it is not yet normal, you let me know also. I can see whether we can fix it from this end. Yes, we shall request Mr. Deng to keep yourself mute so that we don't interrupt the class. We also requested that you use your true names. They have to be captured on attendance lists. So I was saying that when you look at this paragraph, the whole of this is talking about the 3 points we talked about: the problem, the indicators, and the dangers or the negative effects. This sentence, which starts from here, is showing you the negative effects, where the researcher said that this law, the low socio-economic development, if it is not checked, if we don't work on it, it may worsen conditions of people in this area. By the way, these negative effects are your own researcher made. You may not need to reference them. You, what do you think to justify your study? So that's why here you see the researcher tries to explain that people's unemployment rate may increase or worsen if their education levels are low, because low education rates was one of the indicators of the problem of these people. So somebody is also showing a danger of increase in spread of avoidable diseases. Now, when you look at the whole of this paragraph here, the one which ends here, it is talking about facts about the problem. And when you come to this paragraph here, which starts with this bullet number 2, it is mainly talking about the causes of the problem. You can see here, the researcher said this problem can be attributed to many factors. Of course, as you read, you will see that many people have talked about several causes, so several factors. Somebody said they can be community, people's poor or low socioeconomic development may be cultural, may be based to low infrastructure development, may be based on their lifestyle, may be based on other factors. According to you, each of you has a thinking of why some families remain poor or socially undeveloped. It may be because they don't have assets, they don't have endowments, they don't have the social capital. It may be because the size of the family they have is so big that it cannot allow them to invest. It may be. Yes, so remembers there was a breakdown in the network, but now we have it. We pray that it remains stable for the rest of the class time. We were talking about the problem statement.
The second paragraph.
Yes, we are talking about this second paragraph, that the researcher is mainly explaining the causes of the problem as suggested by different people or as the researcher may be thinking. So as you will see, some of the causes of low socioeconomic development of the household or the family may be even psychological. There are so many other factors, and these factors or causes are referenced according to different authors or researchers. Now, when you reach here, you have explained the causes of the problem, and you would wish to say, but what will this study do? What cause will this study examine? This is how the researcher brought it out. You may bring it out in a different way. But the researcher wanted to build the gap by showing that according to the literature he has looked at, different researchers have done studies on different factors related to socio-economic development problem. But the researcher claims, we say it is a claim, the researcher claimed that he did not find any study which examines the impact of household size on socio-economic development, that he did not find. The researcher claims that he did not find a study explaining the effect the size of whole household has on socio-economic development. So it's showing to us that researchers have ignored. And this is enough. This is called, which type of gap? I will not mention, you are going to mention it. According to the different types of gaps we have seen, which type of gap is this? When the researcher says that he did not find any study examining the impact of household size on socio-economic development. When you look at this part alone, it shows a particular gap. Then he added, and more so in Mitoma, which means the researcher has identified the two gaps for this study to fail. Share with us in the chat the first gap is referring to which type, and the second gap is referring to which type. Share with us in the chat. Hey, I want to check and see that we are really following, and that you will be able to identify your own. Somebody has said that you have not said anything. I thought there is something you have said. I'm waiting for our responses, members. How can the researcher convince the panel that really did not find such a study? By showing one of the ways to convince the readers is by showing the available studies, some of them, and you show that none of them was or has examined your IV. Otherwise, we also believe in you. We believe in your claim until we have evidence to disprove you. When you are typing, you tell me the first gap is this type or the second gap, so that I can, somebody has told us contextual gap, but which of the two? Is it the first or the second? The first mentioned or the second? You clarify. Because even the last sentence, you see the researcher say, this leaves many gaps for this study to fill. It means he did not identify one single gap. There are many. At least as per this second last sentence, you can see two. The first one is which type, and the next one is which type. I'm waiting. Somebody has said that content and the geographical gap. Yes, I think that is okay. I also believe that the first one is content and the last one is the contextual gap. Unless somebody has a different view. But if you don't have a different view, then we can move on. Yes, sorry members, there is a problem in the sharing. Let me share again. I think the administrator, the host had denied me chance, but I think now he has allowed. So yes, thanks for those members who have shared with us. I am currently sharing with you the slides. Use this time. When it comes, it loads here to download it on your system. Otherwise, if we conclude, you may not be able to access it. I hope it will quickly upload because it is a bit heavy. That's why it was not easy to send it via it was not easy to send it via WhatsApp. But let us continue. Somebody says they have a network problem from their side. Sorry. I think you can keep on trying it out. Try to fix it until you get out of it. I think members, we can proceed. We can proceed. Somebody is asking a question about referencing. It is not okay to mix up the referencing styles. It is better to be consistent, to decide one referencing style you are going to use in your study, and you use it. Where you see it, it will be an error, and it shouldn't be copied. You know, there is a problem. Sometimes students copy, and even they copy errors. When you get somebody's research, don't copy the weak points there, and don't think it is perfect. Actually, one researcher says that there is no perfect research book. It is also a statement that tells us that don't wait to perfect your research. Do something. Write something. Don't wait to have a perfect research work. Do something. Because it is a learning journey, people can only guide you when you have done something. They can't guide you. It is from the mistakes you do that people can guide you. If you don't make them, then they cannot guide you. By the way, it is better to make mistakes. Don't fear to make mistakes because you will not know that they are mistakes. So even we learn from mistakes because after making them, we learn that they are mistakes. If we did not make them, we would not learn that they are mistakes. So you can never be perfect. Even your teachers, they are never perfect. Even you can know that even your teacher right now, if they get their PhD book or their master's book and they look at it now, they may want to remove it from the shelves where it is to make it better. That's why I told you that you learn research after doing it. If you don't do research, you never learn. After submitting, then you can be able to see the errors because the pressure you are at when you are submitting does not allow you to see. But after submitting, you can be able to see. That's why the supervisors who are not at pressure to submit can see your errors when for you, you don't see them. I think we can proceed. We can move on to the next slide. So we are now looking at the purpose of a study. You should also note that once your background is finished and your problem statement is finished, your study is moving to the near clear phases where you know where you want to go. If a purpose is very easy, some people call it the general problem or the general aim. For us, we call it the main reason why a study is done, or the overall target the researcher wants to achieve. I call it the overall target. What do you want to achieve at the end of the day? What will be your conclusion? Or what conclusion do you want to come up with? Even at this step, you need to know what conclusion you want to come up with. There is a saying that it is better to begin with the end in mind. When you begin without an end in mind, then you don't know where you want to go. Even when you are going to Nairobi, for the first time that you have never reached there, you start drawing your mind to where you are going. At least you console yourself with one thing, that I'm going to Nairobi. But if you have ever gone there, the moment you go to Entebbe and you board the plane, your mind is now looking at Nairobi, even if you are still at Entebbe. So researchers begin with the end in mind. Researchers begin with the end in mind. I don't know whether it is my network which people are complaining about, whether it is their network. I'm not in Kampala, so I'm a bit far away. I really can't ascertain whether it is my network or not. But let us keep on. We hope the recording will be clear. Then we shall immediately share it. For the activity which we gave you, there are two options. The first option is to print a copy and you take it to office. There is always a secretary. It is better you go there in the after lunch session, because during the morning they are always not opened up or they are busy. You submit in the after lunch. You can submit. If you can't, then you will wait for me to come back. I'll be back next week on Friday. But I think just to be ready, you have a chance to submit better. Yes. We are saying that the purpose is the main target the researcher wants to achieve at the end. What you want to achieve at the end. And we have emphasized that you begin with the end in mind. You begin with, this is the conclusion I want to make. And it is simple. The conclusion is a yes or a no. For example, in the study we are having here, you want to see whether household size has a significant effect on socio-economic development. That is what you want to conclude about. So it is easy to make an aim of the study or a purpose. We said in most universities, the purpose is a replication of the title. If a title has two variables, it means that title is correlative or is correlational in nature. If a title has one variable, that study is not correlational. But if a study has both IV and DV and therefore it is correlational, usually the purpose is simply to correlate the IV and DV. And that will be the major conclusion the researcher would wish to come up with at the end of the study. Of course, there will be other explanations of how the IV explains the DV, but those ones will come later. The one major conclusion would be, or the one major question you have to ask is that, does household size significantly explain the socio-economic development of those households? In other words, you can even simplify it in a way of saying that, does the size of a household matter in deciding the development of a household? Which would also tell you that now there you mean that if a size is big, according to theory, if the size is big, it means that the household has many members, their socioeconomic development levels will be low compared to a household with a small size or with a small number of members. So you can explain further as the theory explains, but the big conclusion you want to come up with is that. So we said, according to most universities, the purpose is a replication of the title. If it is accurately stated, the research study is easy. In other words, if you have an accurate end in mind, a clear end you want to come up with, you find the study easy because you know where you want to go, where you want to reach. But if it is you are not very clear of what you want to come up with, the question you want to answer, then the study may fail to provide the answers you wanted. Different scholars have decided the way to state the purpose. Some have even gone to the extent of saying that you should use these words. Others say you shouldn't use these words. If you are so much rigid, or if you're a supervisor and you are so much rigid, those different opinions, you can even tell your student that don't use this one, use this one. But me, I just tell you that you can use different words. I don't have any single way of phrasing the purpose. All what I see, I look for is to see whether the purpose you have stated clearly brings out what you want to come up with at the end of a study. We gave an example here. You can look at it, but you can look at several other examples. One other important point to take when you are doing your research, whether at master's or PhD, is that when you are writing, you are still a student, you are learning. Therefore, learn from different people. Don't learn from only one person. Yes, you have attended the class, and for alhamdulillah, your teacher was great, you appreciated, but also learn from others. Be convinced by looking at different people. Only that when you study from others, don't copy. Just get convinced by the way the idea is presented, and you say, now, I think this one is better. Oh, this one adds on the other one, because people present their ideas in different ways. So you can look at 20 research reports and look at the way they stated there, purposes. I believe you can be able to identify the differences and the similarities, which is the skill we expect a person at a postgraduate level to get. If at a postgraduate level you cannot compare things to identify similarities and differences, please, we encourage you to enhance that capacity, because that is what differentiates you from a bachelor's. You can look at the different ideas and you compare them. You can identify the similar ideas and the different ideas, those which are similar and those which are different, and the unique ideas. And you can also compare your idea with existing ideas, and you see whether your idea is similar to any of the existing ideas or it is novel, meaning that it is new, it is different from any. So I'll finally go to the objectives of the study. And we say that we have seen that the purpose is the general target, the overall target. Therefore, the objectives are the specific targets. When you break down the purpose into specific targets, then you get the specific objectives. So because we said that the purpose leads you to the general conclusion, then the objectives guide that general conclusion. When you summarize all the objectives, you get the purpose. When you break down the purpose, you get the objectives. That is how it is even in the conclusions later. That when you group together all the conclusions, you factor them together, you get one conclusion. When you break them into smaller conclusions, you can get the smaller conclusions per each objective. So how do we break the purpose into specific targets? We said there are many approaches we can use. One of them is called the variable measurement and relating, the many-to-one linking strategy, and the one-to-many, as we can see them here. Now, we have explained how to formulate specific objectives according to each approach. For example, according to variable measurement and relating, we have said that you make objectives according to variables you have, or you can break down your variables, and each breakdown is made an objective. For example, a study which has two variables or three, the first objective comes from measuring the first variable. The second objective comes from measuring the second variable. And the third objective comes from measuring the third variable if you have three. Then the next objective should come from a relationship between the first variable and the second variable. We also said that a fourth objective may be created by relating or comparing either the IV or the DV with any of the profile variables of interest to the researcher. We have given an example here. Somebody is asking, can objectives be specific and general in the same work? There are also different views or different opinions. There is an opinion that you have general objective and specific objectives. There is also another opinion that the purpose is the same as the general objective. Therefore, when you have the purpose, you should not have an objective. There is that belief. It will depend on what your supervisor believes in. In KIU, the second opinion is the most common, that when you have the purpose, you don't have the general objective. From a purpose, you simply go to the specific objectives. That is the opinion which I have seen in KIU being common. But when you find the other one, you may not quarrel with your supervisor, because you are not the supervisor, by the way. You are just a student. So as you see here in the first objective, it is intending to measure the IV, which is the household size. And the second is intending to measure the DV, which is socioeconomic development. It is the third, which is on the relationship between the IV and DV. And the fourth is measuring differences in socioeconomic development with respect to household headship. You may follow that, or you may follow another approach. You may follow another approach of the one-to-many linking strategy. Sorry, this one is supposed to be the many-to-one linking strategy, where we have indicated that your IV, you break it down into two or more elements according to your conceptualization in the background. Then each element is linked to the DV. The DV, you keep it as one, you don't break it. So that's why we call it many-to-one linking strategy. So when you come down here, we have given an example of this diagram. The IV is household size. You may break it according to the way you measured it in the conceptual perspective of the background. Probably, maybe you have one element as small household size, medium household size, and big household size. And you may want to link each of these to see whether the small household sizes have a high socioeconomic development level, and so on. As you can see, this is the figure. These are the elements of IV. The DV is one. The arrow shows a link. So each arrow is an objective. So when you go to the next slide, you will see how objectives were formulated from this linkage. And yeah, here it is. Here it is. You can see this. These are three objectives now, because then we said the number of objectives will depend on the number of elements of your IV, which you have decided to examine. Members have continued to show that the network is a problem. Let me see if I can change the network here to another network, if they can allow. I'm about to complete the class, but let me see if the other network is available. I switch to it. We shouldn't go off. If it is stable, then we can see how we can improve the network. Remember, as I have already shared the PowerPoint I'm using in the chat, you can go there and download it before the class ends. Because when the class ends, you may not be able to access it from here. So go and download it and put it on your system. I hope we shall not have this one as a problem next time. I was trying to switch from one network to another, but it looks like the one I'm using is the one which is better now. The other one of the office where I am seems to be having. Yes, members, we are back. I don't know whether this one is now stable. It is still connecting. Conclude this class. I hope this network to which I have connected is better. If it is really better, then that is good. Because people had continued to indicate that the network still has a problem, but okay, somebody is showing me that it is better. Let me try to conclude this presentation of today. We have seen that you can formulate your objectives using different approaches. We have seen the many-to-one linking strategy, and the opposite is the one-to-many linking strategies. In that strategy, you don't break the IV. You leave it as one, but you break the DV into many elements, as you can see this object here. In this object, you see that we left the IV as one, and we have broken the DV into three elements. Remember, our DV is socio-economic development. We have broken it into three constructs: access to economic resources, consumption patterns, and domestic house quality. Then we have linked the IV, as you see this arrow, to each element of the DV, and each arrow is an objective. So the formulation is indicated here. So once you have picked the idea on how to formulate the objectives using the three approaches, you choose which approach you are going to use to formulate your objectives, and you begin. Usually when we begin these research questions, it is simple. For each objective, you do what? You formulate one research question. For each objective, one research question, as you see this example here. Usually, research questions for objectives which are correlational we may not start them with the question, with the word what. We may start by asking a question which requires a yes or a no answer. For example, is there a significant relationship between household size and socio-economic development? That question requires a yes or a no. And in most cases, research objectives which are correlational. For example, if you use the minute one or a one-to-many linking strategy, your research questions will be in this format. Then the hypothesis will also come from the research questions. And we said here that not all research questions will need a hypothesis. So some studies are hypothesis free, others require hypothesis. In other words, some studies do not require hypothesis, others require hypothesis. If your research question is not asking for either a significant relationship or a significant difference, then your study does not require hypothesis. So we should not take it that every study must have hypothesis, as some people may take it. I always hear some people asking their students that, where is your hypothesis? If they are coming from a hypothesis background. And others stop the students from having hypothesis, saying that, we don't have a hypothesis. If it is a research question, don't put a hypothesis. A hypothesis is something that must be dictated by the nature of the study, not by the researcher's thinking. Let me say that. It is the nature of your study that dictates the hypothesis. So just know that if your study has, your objectives are correlative, then it is already implied that you must test hypotheses, because there is no way you will achieve that relationship objective without testing hypothesis. So if you have known this, you also know that we have two big classifications of hypotheses, although there are others. You can have what we call, you can have what we call null and alternative. In statistical theory, statistics tests a null hypothesis, not alternative. That is the justification Amin has given as to why researchers are required to state a null hypothesis. If you have any other reference, you can give us why you should not state a null hypothesis. You can use it as your justification, and you can share it with us, no problem, or with your supervisor. Somebody has said I should clarify more on when to have hypothesis and when not to have hypothesis. The clarification is simple. I said, look at your objectives. If the objective is correlational, that is, it is testing either significant relationship or a significant difference, then you know that your study requires hypothesis. If, for example, my friend Aziz or Elina, who is not interested in a relationship study, obviously they will not have hypotheses in their studies, because they will not have an objective which says determining the relationship between A and B. That's what I wanted to stop at. You can read this slide 3 times as you are thinking of what I have said. Then you can look at these samples, following the objectives, research questions, and then these samples. You can get me well on this. For example, you may understand why from approach number 1 we have 2 hypotheses, and why from approach number 2 we have 3 hypotheses, and why from approach number 3 we have 3 hypotheses. I think I have ended that there. Then I'll talk about the scope. I have also given the sample of the scope, geographical scope, content scope, theoretical scope, and time scope. I have strongly advised people on the time scope, that before you put time scope, first understand what does it require. We shall share more about time scope when we have chance. If you have any question, please you can ask via the chat. Otherwise, for today, we shall finish with the significance of the study as a section. It is, you write paragraphs here. Before you write, first list down who are the people who may benefit from the findings of your study. Who are those people who are likely to benefit from the findings of your study, and how are they likely to benefit? That's all, members, for today. I want to move away from the office where I am. I have to travel back to where I'm going to sleep. But we can keep sharing even on the platform. To stop here, and I will
Thank you, Doctor.
I'll leave the door for questions to the WhatsApp platform, because where I am, and it is already 7. That's what I agreed to stop at. Thank you. Make sure you download the presentation I have sent.